You're listening to the Kick Your Boots Up podcast, where we swap stories of the West. Whether you're just waking up or getting in for the day, come on in and kick your boots up.
El logotipo de Kick Your Boots Up con imágenes en blanco y negro de vaqueros y vaqueras y trabajadores de fábrica haciendo botas y texto en la pantalla que dice presentando a Katie Lucas, la personalidad en el aire del Cowboy Channel.
Thanks for joining us on Kick Your Boots Up. I'm your host, Taylor McAdams, and today joining me is one of my dear friends. I'm so excited she was able to take time out of her busy schedule to sit down with us. Some of you know her as Katie Lucas from the Cowboy Channel. Luckily, I get to call her Katie. She is an incredible woman. You're about to hear her story, where she came from, all about her. And a few things that you should know about her before she gets to tell you about herself is this girl is the jack of all trades. She can clean it up and be on TV, but she's also a roper, and she grew up in a rodeo family. So she's no stranger to the rodeo arena, which naturally makes her a rodeo stat junkie. She's a self-proclaimed junkie for rodeo stats. So any quizzes you have on rodeo, I'm sure you can send them her way as well. She's lucky and fortunate enough to be married to an incredible guy, an incredible man, and dear friend of ours as well. And his name is Jensberg, and he has Jensberg Bits and Spurs. So she gets to help him on the marketing side and kind of promote his business as well. When I tell you she wears many hats, she wears them all. Katie, thank you for taking the time to be here. I know you're in and out from rodeos, whenever you're on the Cowboy Channel. So you being here and taking the time to talk with us means a lot. Thank you so much.
Video de una joven rubia con una camisa verde oliva y una bufanda alrededor del cuello, con auriculares que transmiten un podcast en un estudio en el lado izquierdo de la pantalla. Video de una mujer morena con una chaqueta negra y una camisa roja en el lado derecho de la pantalla sentada en un porche afuera, mientras conversa con la presentadora del podcast. Un marco marrón gráfico en pantalla con el logotipo de Kick Your Boots Up Podcast en la parte inferior central y el logotipo de Justin en la esquina inferior derecha.
Hey, well, I would do anything for you, Taylor. And I have to say, I feel like I really have to live up to that amazing intro that you gave me there. Thank you.
Oh, of course. Oh my gosh. I could say a million more things. In fact, my favorite thing about you is whenever we first met. And when I was a National High School Rodeo Queen, you were Miss Rodeo Canada. And to me, that was the coolest thing, that not only were you Miss Rodeo Canada from another country, but you were so nice to a young girl like me. I was in high school at the time, obviously, and you were obviously the bigger queen. And so I appreciate that the most. Was that 2014? That you're Miss Rodeo Canada?
I think it was 14 because it was when I was in Las Vegas. I was Miss Rodeo Canada 2015, but I went to Vegas immediately after being crowned in 14. So yeah, it must have been a long time ago now.
Oh yeah, it feels forever ago, but that's awesome. That's what keeps us friends and stuff like that too. But before we get started really into the podcast and going into the depths of it all, I want you to kind of get a chance to introduce yourself and talk about what you do on your day-to-day, just everything about you. Who is Katie Lucas?
Well, as you said, I kind of dip my toes in a lot of things, but my main passion is with the Cowboy Channel. I'm one of the on-air personalities for the Cowboy Channel, and I started with them about 2.5 years ago now. Started out as a producer and then was able to slowly grow it into an on-air role, which is truly where my passions lie. I really love story building. And so the producing side of me is still there for sure. And I'm actually working on a few things right now that hopefully we can get through by the end of the summer to kind of expand on that story building side of things. But I truly love being there with the contestants and helping them tell their stories as well. So I was very happy to start moving over to the on-air side of things. And it's so much fun for me. And there's nothing that gets me more excited, more nervous too, because I truly am passionate about it each and every time I get to do an interview with people that truly are my heroes and people that I love and respect. So that's a big part of who I am. And then, of course, happy to move down here to Texas. I'm originally from Carstairs, Alberta, Canada. And so I know it sounds cliche, but I pinch myself all the time because it's very cool that a small town girl from Canada was able to, slowly work her way up to this and be in the heart of rodeo country and I get to live here now. So I love roping. My dad was a tie down roper. And so grew up roping my whole life. I don't get to do it as much as I want to anymore, but that's something that I'm definitely going to pursue later in life as well. And just pick away where I can right now. So into a lot of things and they all kind of revolve around rodeo.
Yes, they do. And you being growing up in a rodeo family, you kind of started living it from the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started.
Yeah, so my dad rodeoed professionally for 25 years in both the Canadian Pro Rodeo Association and the PRCA as well. Went to my first rodeo when I was just 11 days old, and we rodeoed quite a bit with dad, especially when he started focusing more on Canada and not traveling as much. We went on the road with him quite a bit, but just I don't remember a time where rodeo wasn't in my life, and I wouldn't have it any other way either. It's been so much fun to live the life that I get to live, and I really do. I really do enjoy it, and I think all of the values that come from it are just so special to me, and something that I appreciate so much.
Yeah, and you and your family are so passionate about it. You can tell that your veins run deep in rodeo. And one thing that inspires me is you get to tell stories about when your dad was at the NFR because you've heard stories about when your dad was at the NFR. Tell us about what that's like sitting around at home or sitting around the dinner table and having a dad that's accomplished so much.
Well, it's funny because he really doesn't act like it. I read his stats, or me loving rodeo stats, as I would check up on how many times he's qualified for the Canadian finals, how many times he's won a Canadian title, qualifying for the NFR. You wouldn't know it. He's pretty unassuming. He's very quiet, and he's certainly not going to brag on himself at all. And so you would not know that he was the fierce competitor that he was, just knowing him today, because he's so level, he's so quiet. And so he's kind of intriguing to me because obviously I'm a talker. And so him and I in a conversation is 99% me, 1% him. And, but I mean, we make it work. I'm very close with my dad, and, but he is very, privately a fierce competitor. Just hearing, the few times that he does speak and does give you advice in the rodeo arena, you could tell he had such an inner confidence and a very strong competitiveness. You just didn't see it on the surface. So honestly, day to day, you wouldn't have a clue that he's been to the NFR or been a Canadian champion at all.
I second that. He's so humble, and getting to talk to him, he's really funny too. He kind of
Yes.
gives off this because he's quiet. He kind of gives off this
Mhm.
scary, stern vibe, but he's hilarious and so kind. And one thing that's special about him and your entire family, I've got to brag on, is you guys would give the shirt off your back for anyone. You guys are kind people. And I think you mentioned the talking. You love talking. You get that from your mom, Shauna. Shout out to mom, Shauna. She is so cool. But I think another thing you get from her is the fashion as well. And we'll get to talk a little bit about the fashion later, but I have to bring that up because you have so many different styles from the different decades that you're able to bring back because vintage is so big right now. And so what does it
Mhm.
mean to you then to have, like, the other day I saw you post on Instagram that you had a dress that your mom had worn at the Canadian finals or the NFR, somewhere very prestigious and meaningful to their family, that you were able then to rewear it. What does that mean to you?
Oh, I love it. I like to bug my mom because we call them vintage, and she doesn't appreciate that we're calling her clothes vintage. But she saved so many great pieces because she was very stylish, and she was really small like me too. And so a lot of the pieces are custom made for her. The outfit that I had on the other day was a custom made top and skirt set, and so they're really great quality pieces. And there's a few of them actually that I have in my wardrobe that I get to bring out every once in a while. And I know she's pretty proud that I wear those, but she does. She has amazing fashion sense. And so getting to share some of her clothes and hand me down some of her clothes is pretty special to me. And they still look great.
Oh yeah, they do. And you make them look so good too. You style them. You both have, I'm sure if you go back and look at pictures, you style them so different. Nobody would even know. That's really cool too. And we've talked about mom and dad and you, of course. Now we've got to talk about Kyle just briefly. What's it like? I know we have a rodeo memory that we got to share that I was just at one minor rodeo that you guys, you get to go to a lot of rodeos together. But I remember in Pendleton, it was so cool for you to be there as an on-air talent. And then also getting to see your brother compete as well. That's happened so many times. There's the iconic interview that you had in Denver when he won Denver a few years back. What's it like to have a brother that's relevant and active and currently doing really good, and also getting to call him brother?
It's a lot of fun, and it helps us get the chance to see each other a little bit more too, because both of us are all over the place on the rodeo trail. So it's kind of nice. Lately, I've been just missing him though. Usually I'll show up at a rodeo right after he's gone, or he shows up right after I leave. So it's been a bummer that our schedules haven't matched up, but we are really, really close. So I know we kind of share in each other's victories a lot, and it's pretty special to us. We're only a year and 2 weeks apart in age, so we always have done everything together. We fought a lot as young siblings, but we always were really close and really cheered each other on every step of the way. So it's a lot of fun that we get to continue that, and both of us get to work and compete in something we're so passionate about equally.
Oh, I can tell the passion's there for sure. And another passion of yours is the Cowboy Channel. And I've got to ask you, I want to know the ins and the outs, and I'm sure everyone out there listening does too. What's it like to be a TV personality and get to be in the limelight and get to know the stats as well and be respected in the same way?
Gosh, it changes day to day. It's always pretty busy. You're always juggling a lot of things. But I think there's a lot more work that goes into it too than people realize. We don't just pop on TV when the rodeo starts or when Western Sports Roundup starts and just rattle these things off. We prep for hours before each show. Usually you prep more hours than the actual show is. For instance, for Western Sports Roundup, I prep for 4 hours minimum just to get ready for that 1 hour show typically. And that's just, finding out the backstories, researching stats on competitors. You've got to work so hard at it. And I think that's one thing that maybe people don't always realize because they don't get to see the behind the scenes. So it's a lot more than that 1 hour show or that 3 hour rodeo that goes into it. It's a lot of fun. There's nothing I would rather be doing and rather be, working my butt off at. But I think there's a lot more that goes into it than a lot of people realize.
Oh yeah, and I'm so glad you brought that up. It's really unique to see you guys be able to rattle off the stats that you do about things that happened years ago, and quite frankly, sometimes there's things that happened before you were even born that you have to memorize and cram in your head, which I guess you can relate back to rodeo queening on that one. That one has helped you so much there, but also too, I remember when you made the transition from producer to talent, there was a lot of learning. Obviously, you at one point in time, you were playing both roles. You were being talent and producer, and that was a lot. But what's your favorite on-air memory of that you can remember of like the time that you thought, wow, I really made it. I'm really getting to live my dream?
Gosh, of course, interviewing Kyle at Denver was very, very special to us personally. But as far as just for me personally, I think for me, a couple times now, and I want to give a shout out to him because it is pretty special. Casey Field, he always takes a moment to compliment me after interviews, especially if he really likes the interview. And to me, to have a competitor that, of course, I grew up watching him, and then I got to be a part of his career covering rodeos with him. Even when I was broadcasting in Canada, he would come up to the major rodeos and I'd get to watch him compete and interview him. And so to have that little piece of his career and be around for that, and then to have him turn around, the greatest of all time in the bareback riding, turn around and tell me that I'm doing a good job is pretty special to me. So I want to give a shout out to Casey for that, because it means a lot, because we put a lot into this job and we're pretty hard on ourselves and we want to be better and better all the time. And I really do care about sharing these amazing stories of these rodeo athletes. So to have him turn around and say that, I think that for me, it's happened a couple times now, but those moments really do stand out.
Wow. Yeah. He's a class act all the way around. I think that's a given. And I'm so glad you gave him that shout out, because that means a lot. That as a rodeo queen, you can't help but think, oh no, I'm just in the way. Oh no, I'm just here to breathe your air. But it's so nice and rewarding to know that you get to take up space in the industry as a female. And then to have, someone at that caliber commend you, that probably is a better compliment than just even another small compliment. You can definitely rank that one higher. But kind of moving on, what is one of your favorite rodeos to report on? I know it's so hard to name a specific one, but maybe there's one that you think, wow, this is really fun and crazy and different, or anything like that.
Gosh, they're so different. As you know, every rodeo has its different personality. And so I feel like I couldn't really name one, but there were a couple that I had so much fun at last year. Just for example, to narrow it down, Sykeston Rodeo, we had a blast there. The committee is really fun. And they kind of have a different mentality. They're all, if you are on the board of directors or if you have a vote on the board, you have to be 40 or under because they want to keep it fresh, keep it changing all the time. They change their president or their CEO position every single year because they just want to keep changing it up and keep advancing it. And we actually had a lot of fun when I walked into the very last production meeting that they had. They warned me to keep my head low when I exited that production meeting, because what they do is after the last one to celebrate, they have a rodeo grounds wide water fight for everybody. Like it doesn't matter if you were a barrel racer that's up that evening, if you were on the rodeo grounds, you could be a target. And so it was so much fun. And I was kind of being a baby at first. I had my raincoat on with my hood up and I was just trying to stay behind in one of the side by sides. And we were just going to shoot a story on it. And my cameraman, David, he still makes fun of me to this day because I made him go get the camera, get suited up in rain gear and do this story. And he didn't appreciate that he was the only one that had to get wet. And so he's up on their Humvee because they are very intense about it. I guess fire trucks get involved some years, but this year they had a full-on military Humvee with a generator-powered water cannon on it. And so he was up there and they had a bin with a whole bunch of water balloons and he leaned over and said to some of the guys like, hey, you need to soak her for making me do this. And so from then on, the fight was on. I was up on the Humvee and got to play with everybody. And so that one was so much fun. And I still, when I see those guys from the Sykeston Rodeo Committee, they're giving me high fives and hugs. And I feel like I was truly a part of it. And another one like that I had so much fun was at Gooding, Idaho for the Gooding Pro Rodeo. And, it's just kind of a smaller rodeo. It's got a lot of money at it. It's a great rodeo, but tiny, tiny town. I mean, the entire population of the county shows up for that rodeo and it was so much fun. And they have their beer worthy section where they have a group of ladies at the side of the arena in the stands in their little section. And if you do something that they deem beer worthy as a rodeo contestant, you get to go over and they have a keg right there and they'll pour you a glass of beer and hand it through the fence. And so just rodeos like that, they really leave an impression on you because of their unique personalities. So it might not be, the biggest rodeo out there. Those are amazing too, but there's always a little personality and a little fun behind the scenes feel that you get from each and every rodeo you go to. So it's hard to choose one that I like the most, but those are just a couple stories that stood out just from the last year alone for me.
I love both of those stories. It shares so much about what the rodeo industry is like. You do become part of the family. And it shows a lot about you too, that you're willing to have fun because you very easily could have been like, don't mess up my hair and makeup. But you were there for it. You were ready to pack on some more if you needed. So that's really cool too. And speaking of behind the scenes, I'm genuinely curious, and I'm sure a lot of people are out there as well, because they actually dream of having your view of the rodeo. And maybe not necessarily your job, but they want to be behind the shoots and they want to be in the action and they want to know what it's like behind the rope and boxes. So tell us about what it is like behind the scenes at the rodeo whenever you get to experience the losses and the wins right alongside the cowboys.
Yeah, you get to see the kind of the finer details and I love it. At the Fort Worth Stock Show, which I absolutely loved doing interviews at this past year or this past winter, I got to stand kind of in Joe Beaver's spot where he stands during the NFR next to the roping box. And not all of the rodeos have that kind of access. Usually you're kind of stuck on one side or the other. But there you could go back and forth. And I was standing right next to the box. I could see the barrier line really well. I could see, if they were late, I could see if they pulled through the line. Just those finer details are sort of those things that I like to nerd out on. I love seeing the little moments, behind the bucking chutes. I love hearing them talk through, if a horse is squatting or if the horse isn't standing right, you can hear them talking with the stock contractor. And I think those moments are really cool and something I never take for granted. I remember very early on in my career was the very first rodeo that I got to broadcast right after I graduated college in 2013 was the Armstrong Pro Rodeo in British Columbia, Canada. And that was when the Calgary Stampede bucking horse Graded Coconut was still competing. And I remember those, the first time I got to be on the back of the bucking chutes. I'm there, I'm feeling in the way. I'm, kind of nervous about it all because this is my first real big kid job. And they loaded Graded Coconut in, and he's a stud. So they didn't have a horse in front or behind him because he didn't like that. And he's dog gentle. He's a pet. And so he stands there really quietly, but he just exuded so much power. And I mean, it's end of summer. He's slicked off. He's just ripped with muscle. He's all veiny. And, but he stood there quiet as can be, but he exuded so much power that it made me step back away from him. Just like he might've been, another horse might make you step back from them thrashing around. It had the same feeling of like, oh, I need to get back from this guy because he means business. So you get to feel those things and feel the emotion from behind the chutes or behind the roping box. That's definitely something that I'll never take for granted. It's so cool.
I truly have no words. That's incredible. One of the once in a lifetime experiences that you'll get to experience along the way. But I love how original you are as well. You always are never afraid to take up the space there and then be able to live to tell the stories and share with everyone. You could have just kept it to yourself. And so I love that about you. But another part about you of being original is your style. And I love going antiquing with you for this reason, because you'll find the most random things covered in dirt or dust and turn around and make them beautiful. Like I remember particularly one time you said, right now I'm really into buckles that don't necessarily have championship titles or Miss Rodeo, whatever, but just like a cute, classy, old antique buckle. So tell us about some of the things that you're into right now, style wise.
Well, yeah, you are right about the buckles. One that I've been wearing a lot lately is my husband's grandpa's buckle. It's an old bareback riding buckle. I think it's 1953 or 1963. And it's just that cool, classic, old, dark gray with a little bit of bronze on there. And it's just such a cool old relic. So I've really been liking that lately, which is different for me. I've always just worn my own buckles, or when I was a little girl, I wore my dad's buckle all the time. So I've always worn those like championship buckles, like you say. So that's a little different for me, and they're cute. They're usually a smaller buckle if they're old. And so they're kind of feminine. And I think that they're really cool. I love the suede trend for cowboy boots lately. My Justin Vintage collection, the black suede, those are probably one of my favorite pairs of boots. I wear them a ton. And I noticed that is such a big trend right now. And I think they're so cool. So that's something that I have really been liking lately. As far as other style, I'm trying to think of something that really stands out for me, but I try to just make it me no matter what I do. And for me, that has a lot to do with fit, because I am small. And so I have to be very careful not to have clothes wear me. Where I just, look like a walking outfit. I think that no matter what with your fashion, I want to see the person behind it first. And with me being small, it's very easy for me to like overload with too much, whether it be, too much pattern, too many accessories, a jacket that doesn't fit quite right, to where you don't see the person behind it. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me, is it should be kind of an extension of your personality, not be so in your face that becomes your personality. And that's just what works for me. I love style. I love following everybody and seeing their different styles and kind of imagining how I could make certain pieces work for me that I maybe never thought of before. But that's just kind of what works for me. And I love a good blazer too. I always have loved wearing blazers. My mom, that was something that she kind of taught me early on in my career. Because I'm so small, she wanted me to be able to look strong and to have a presence. And so she said, you got to wear some good, well-fitted blazers with some nice, strong shoulders. And so I try to think about that quite a bit. And I do love a good blazer.
Your style is iconic. I really love every single piece that you wear and put on. But one thing that you've kind of, I feel like, really mastered is dressing for TV. There's a difference between dressing for just a rodeo to go out or dressing for TV. So touch on that before we go, just very briefly, on how important it is to find the perfect outfits for TV and camera ready.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up too, because I feel like, if I'm going out on a date with my husband, or like you say, just going to watch a rodeo, I can dress very differently versus how I can dress on TV. I think that in this industry, you need to be a little more conservative on television. You need to be professional, of course. And then there's also certain things too, where I might not wear an outfit in the studio, but I think it works at the rodeo too. So, and that's just Katie rules. That's not necessarily anything that's laid out in our industry. I think everybody kind of has to find their own style, but you have to think about certain things. Am I sitting today on set? Am I standing and I've got the high bar table? So maybe I need something where I can get my elbows up on the table, and it won't look weird. It won't mess up my shirt or my jacket by having my elbows up. Am I doing a rodeo in the studio? So they're going to see my whole body because we don't have a table in front of us. They're just little things that you have to think about when you're dressing for work, as with anybody with their job, because you want to fit the role that you've been asked to do. So I don't know, I have little, OCD Katie rules that aren't necessarily for everybody, but that for me is a big deal. Is I always want to feel professional. I always want to feel, covered up. So I'm not feeling self-conscious out there, and just fit the vision of what I think I should look like as a broadcaster.
You do an exceptional job. And I'm thankful that you shared your story a little bit about the importance of having a professional and modest look. I really, really appreciate that. And unfortunately, today we're running out of time. Hopefully in the future, we can get you on more, or even do some kind of takeover, and you can show all the people on social media who you are and what you get to do every day. But before we go, will you sell yourself? Where can we find you? I know you have a website, social media. We want people to be able to come and find you. So where can we find you?
Yeah, I think the best place to follow me is on Instagram or Facebook, or I have TikTok now. I'm not super active on it. I feel too old for TikTok, but anywhere you look for me, just follow KT Rodeo, the letters KT and the word rodeo. And that's the same for Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok too. So happy to have people kind of following my journey. Everyone has been so kind, sending such nice messages. So I really do appreciate that. And I hope I stick to my true self. I don't post as often as I probably should, but it's because I want to wait until I truly feel the need to, or feel the call to say something. I don't ever want to be fake on my social media. So I really do appreciate all the support that people give me when I do post and do share a little bit about me.
Oh, yes. You do a great job of being real. That's probably why we're friends, but also that's why I enjoy following you as a person on social media as well. You show the days in and days out, and some days you're wearing makeup and some days you're not, and you own it. And that's what I love most about you. I look forward to watching you on down the line on the Cowboy channel, as well as the Cowgirl channel, now that it's launched. I forgot to mention that. But thank you so much for taking the time. Again, it's so important that you did take the time to talk to us, because you are so busy in between rodeos. Thank you again. And if anyone out there is listening and they want to know more from Katie, feel free to reach out to her. She's an open book, and she'll be able to help you with whatever she can. Katie, you're awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Taylor. You are too kind, as per usual. I think I text you that all the time. Thank you for being a great friend, and thank you for having me on.
Of course.
Pantalla a negro y el logotipo de Justin y el logotipo de Kick Your Boots Up apilados verticalmente.
Thanks for joining us on Kick Your Boots Up. I'm your host, Taylor McAdams, and we can't wait to share the next story of the West. Until then, feel free to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. Follow us on social media at Justin Boots to keep up with our next episode, and we'll see you the next time you kick your boots up.